Hello, I am Arthres and I'm an individual coach in League for over 3 years. In this video I will present you 5 mid laners for patch 14.14 along with quick guides to learn them. Strong push, great control and very fast rotations are only few of Taliyah's strengths. Thanks to her Q that has low cooldown, not only she can deal tons of damage but also control the teamfights. Two abilities that can stop your enemy are also handy in this case, and while some fight happens far away from you, you can jump on your ult and join the fight to surprise enemies or avoid the danger. While her Q is good to spam, it can be blocked by minions or enemy frontline, and using your E to damage your enemy early in the game is not the strongest thing. You can greatly suffer from bad position and get easily killed if you use your W and E incorrectly. On top of that, as a control mage, we are not rock solid like our friend from the top lane. For skill order we'll have Q into E into W, and for summoner spells we want TP and Flash. Quick ability guide. Passive. When you are roaming, make sure to stick to the wall, you will get bonus movement speed thanks to that. Q. Throws 5 stones in the chosen direction and creates worked ground. If you cast your Q when you are standing on it, you will have reduced mana cost, 50% reduced cooldown, and deal damage in only one instance, and slow your enemies for 1.5 seconds. Also, you can use your auto attacks during your Q to help yourself with last hits. Use this ability to poke enemies and deal damage in your fights, and remember about the difference with and without worked ground. W knocks your enemies 400 units away. Make sure to use this ability precisely, because as long as you have it, you can defend yourself, but if you randomly waste it, things might get much harder. W works great with her E, which scatters the field with 22 stones, and if someone will dash or will be pushed through them, for example with our W, he will get additional damage and stun for 0.75 seconds. Use your W to push enemies wherever you want, and pair it with your E to maximize your burst. Your ultimate creates a wall, which you can serve by clicking R button twice. You can also use it to separate them during the teamfights or to cut off your enemies when they are running away. Remember that you are a control mage, so you don't want to get too close. Spam your Q and be patient with your E and W, and your enemies will have hard time reaching you. Your burst combo when enemy is close is W, E and Q. Also, during the teamfights, it's good to look for enemies with dashes and simply use E if they dash in your range to make their life much harder. Going to our second pick, elusive AP assassin who easily can fool her enemies. LeBlanc. Thanks to your W, you have a lot of mobility, and your ult allows you to adapt to the situation. And on top of that, some time ago her Q got changed, and right now it's easier to farm with it. About the weaknesses, it's hard to balance aggression with wave management due to long W cooldown early. Her dash can be stopped by CC, and she relies on hitting her chain. And lastly, you prefer to catch people off guard rather than teamfighting 5 vs 5, which requires a lot of patience. For runes you want to take this. As a build we can go this. As skill order, generally we want to max the W, but I want you to experiment with the Q as well, because personally I like to max Q. Quick ability guide. Her passive. Once your health drops below 40%, you will become invisible for 1 second, and create a clone of yourself. You can navigate with your clone by holding Alt and right clicking your mouse. Use it to choke your enemies or simply confuse them with which one is real. Q deals damage and puts mark on the enemy for 3.5 seconds. If you will use any other ability within 3.5 seconds, it will consume the mark, dealing additional damage. The buff on the Q that I mentioned earlier gives you 100% its mana back and 30% of its remaining cooldown if either the mark or its consumption kills the target. Use it to last hit and poke your enemies. W is dash to the target location that deals damage upon arrival. You can recast the ability to teleport back to the place of the first cast. Use it to push minions or gap close your enemies, or if you are in range, to destroy the Q mark on the target. Enemies can see where you can teleport back, so be careful with that. Her E is a skill shot that throws a chain towards the enemy. If you remain in the range of chained enemy, he will get rooted for 1.5 seconds. Use it to stop problematic enemies or to consume the mark from your Q. Ultimate Mimic. Depending on your last ability, it will become a copy of it. All spells work the same, but they will deal different damage. This ability is most complicated here, but also gives us a lot of flexibility. Use it to increase your burst, to get one more dash, or to hold your enemy with another chain. LeBlanc is an assassin, so you want to look for some lonely carries and surprise them with your burst. Notable combos. Basic all-in, WQE or WEQ. That can be used on lane when you know you're winning the trade. Simple poke combo with QW. Very good to push the wave and deal damage to your enemy during the laning phase. Notice how I use auto attack just before I teleport back, which procs electrocute. Full damage combo. EQRW. For example, when the enemy is entering the bushes, cast your EQR and then W to make sure the chain will deal the second part of its damage or root the target. Teamfight combo. If If enemy is too far away, we can try to W forward, QR, and then E. After this, you can instantly press your W to get back and reposition yourself. Your chain will break, but it will deal its first instance of damage, consuming the mark. And very often that's enough to burst squishy enemies. If you like to be aggressive, dominate and push your lane, Tristana will be perfect for you. She has a very strong burst, she's pushing waves really easily with her E passive, and her active E can be used on the turrets, so if enemy team will leave you on the lane, you can push really fast. Another thing is her passive, which increases her auto attack, E and ultimate range each level and lets her shine in the late game. And lastly, her self peel thanks to W and ultimate. During the fights she can reposition herself and chase her targets easily. For her weaknesses, you are basically always pushing with your E's passive, so you need to be extra careful with weight management. In early game, your cooldowns are super long, and since you are an AD carry, your team might force playing AP on other lanes just to fill the gap. Your jump is really telegraphing, so use it when you know the enemy is vulnerable and you can fight him. As runes take this, 4 builds get that, and spell order will be E, Q into W. Quick ability guide. Passive will be bonus range for her basic attacks, E and ultimate, scaling with each level. Q will be 7 seconds attack speed boost. Use it for longer exchanges and make sure you will pair it up with your E. In later part of the game, if you build Navori, you can have 100% uptime of her Q in the fights, but in early game don't waste it since it has a big cooldown. W is a jump that applies slow upon landing and has really cool 2 interactions. First, you can cast your abilities in the air, and second, if you time your W correctly, you can jump out of some CC. To do that, you need to get hit by the ability in the W's cast time, so you get a really small moment for that. You can jump away from many abilities like Blitzcrank Hook or even Vice Ultimate, so make sure to test it out. But be careful, if you're gonna use it too early, you might get cancelled. Also, you get a rocket jump reset each time you detonate your E at maximum stacks on a champion or if you score a takedown. Use it to engage and disengage the fights and to reposition yourself during the team fights. Thanks to the resets, this ability can have huge potential to chase all enemies down during the fight. Her E has passive and active. The passive makes her auto attack to be empowered and explode when they kill the target, dealing magic damage around it. Use it to push your wave even faster. Active throws a grenade on the target that will explode after 4 seconds. If you hit an enemy when he has a grenade on himself, it will deal bonus damage up to 120% after 4 hits. You can stack it with auto attacks, your jump and ult. And lastly, you can also use your grenade on turret to deal massive damage around it. Ultimate is a simple knockback to all enemies around the target. Enemies hit are knocked back and stunned for up to 0.75 seconds. Use it to finish the target, disengage or blow your enemy into your team. Basic combos: all in, W, E, Q and then 3 times auto attack and W back. Great combo to jump in, destroy grenade on your enemy and jump back to safety. Remember to cast your E when you are in the air, so the W will grant you 1 stack on the grenade. Push combo. You can put grenade on the minion and stack and get big explosion, but you can put your E on dying minion and last hit quickly to trigger grenade, plus the passive explosion from your E passive, and that deals quite nice damage too. You can cast your spells in the air, so you can ult someone to put him in bad position, or if you are a fan of a Lee Sin, you can do your own version of Insect. Lastly, quickest detonation combo. W and cast E in the air, auto attack, then use your ult, and auto attack for the 4th stack on your E. Your W gets back on cooldown and you can jump away, or follow your target. With the changes of his abilities, Corki is back in mid lane. As AD carry, with some nice scaling spells we can both burst and poke our enemies. We have our W for mobility that helps us to remain in good position. Due to his passive and possible hail of blades, he has insane damage level 1 that might surprise a lot of players. As an AD carry, we don't have much defensive skills with CC, we rely on our positioning and awareness. Your ultimate is a skill shot, so missing all the rockets will reduce your impact drastically. For runes, you want to take this. As a build we can go this. For skill order we'll have Q into E into W. Passive. Your auto attack is just stronger, not much to say here. Q is a great damage and poke skill that also reveals sight of the area or champion that it hits. Use it to push or burst enemies and to check bashes in later part of the game. W is a simple yet effective dash. You don't want to rely on its small damage, but sometimes it might be useful, especially in early game. Use it to position yourself correctly or to fly into the enemy to burst him. Your E will be damage and armor and magic resist threat. target. You can cast it during your W when you're engaging. Use it when you trade for longer than 1-2 auto attacks. His ultimate is a skill shot that deals a lot of damage. Every third rocket will be a big one and will deal additional damage. Use it to poke enemies before you dive into them to finish them up. Combos and tips. If you want to push, your Q will help you a lot. It also works great with just poking someone, so quick Q and auto attack will do the job. Before the fights, focus on staying safe and poke squishy targets with your ultimate. Whenever you go in, try to have big one ready on your ultimate. That will maximize your burst. If you play Hail of Blades, it makes deadly combo with your E, so you can melt your enemies already in the early game. And most important, your W has a long cooldown, so make sure not to waste it and play safe. If it's on cooldown as AD carry, you know what happens. And lastly, my personal favorite with the largest number of skills to choose from comes Hwei. Great tools to push lane, insane range, a lot of AoE damage, and on top of that a lot of CC makes him really strong. But for weaknesses, as many control mages, he struggles with lack of mobility and being relatively squishy. Poor positioning might end up with dying really quickly. Also, he has 9 abilities to use and you need to get used to clicking all the combinations. For build, take this. As runes, we want to go with that. And for skill order, we want Q into E into the W. Tricks and tips. Firstly, we'll go over the abilities and I will refer to spells instead of QQ. I will say Q1, Q2, Q3, W1, W2, and W3, etc. Passive will be hitting with 2 separate abilities, will trigger additional AoE explosion under the target. Q spells will be for damage. Q1 is a skill shot with AoE damage, use it to poke on the lane and during the fights. Q2 is execute with a big range, deals bonus damage to single target or immobilized champions, used to finish the targets. Q3 is AoE pushing tool, well, used for pushing or controlling large areas during the teamfights. W is utility. W1 creates a path that gives bonus movement speed to you and your allied champs. Use it to reposition. W2 is creating a stacking shield for you and your allies, used to counter the damage. W3 will be bonus damage and mana restore, used to maintain your mana high and proc your passive more often. E will be crowd control. E1 is a skill shot that fears. Don't use it, unless someone stays on you or you have 100% chance, but I find this really unreliable. E2 creates a zone that will attack the closest enemy champion inside. It can be blocked by minions, used to block enemies from entering and to set up your other spells. E3 will pull enemies inside, used to group your enemies in one place and to pair with other abilities. Ultimate is a skill shot that upon hitting lasts 3 seconds. During that time it slows, reveals and deals damage. Slow increases progressively and at the end it blows with AoE damage, used to catch enemies and to separate enemy team. Combos and tips. Since we have 10 abilities we can do many things, so let's start with laning phase. During the laning phase you want to poke your enemy with Q1 and push with Q3 if you want to crash the wave or hard counter enemy push. You want to use your W3 to keep your mana high and to maximize your damage in case of fighting. E3 will be most often used to follow up on Q3 to proc your passive or to burst the wave. E2 will be great tool to zone the enemy either in lane, fights or under the turret. During the team fights you look for poking enemies with your Q. Usually it's Q3 to zone them away from their position, but Q1 works as well. Use W1 to help with engage or disengage, or W2 if your team already engaged and could use some shield. E3 works great to catch enemies, so if someone tries to pass somewhere near the wall, you can try to catch him. You want to hit your ult when it's guaranteed. Wait for someone to be near the wall or after he gets some CC. You can even use your E for that matter. Basic combos: W3, auto attack and Q1. And here, passive will proc third bonus damage from your W3. Q3, E3. You put Q3 on the ground and pull your enemies inside of the fire. It procs passive, so it's a great poke and push at the same time. You can also start with E. E2, Q. Any Q. If you catch someone with E2, it's good to follow it up with your Q, so you can adapt to see which one it should be. If it's just poking, single target Q. If there are more enemies around or you want to scare them off, Q3. Ultimate, Q3, E3. If you hit your ultimate during the laning phase, you want to maximize your damage. A good thing is not to hold your ult for execution, but to get your enemy low with it and make it hard for them to lane. Our Q2 execution combo. Little more advanced execution combo that requires good timing. We're gonna use our ultimate slow and Q2 missing health bonus damage. We use our ult on the target, slow starts to stack, and right at the end of the ult, they can barely move. So we want to time out our Q2 to hit right after ult ends. So how we do it in practice, we use our ult, wait for 2 seconds and a little bit, and cast our Q2 which has 1 second delay, and boom, enemy executed. That's it for this guide. Let me guys know in the comments what do you think about it, and if you like this kind of content, stay tuned because there will be more. See ya in the next one.